how many people still don't even know AI capabilities and that what they're seeing isn't real humans, that's AI generated?
Former SpaceX welder Juan Hernandez becomes a millionaire after historic IPO. Okay, let me say it again. Former SpaceX welder, keyword for CTE, welder becomes a millionaire after the historic.
Elon wasn't ever focused on becoming a trillionaire. He's been about solving big problems.
When you solve big problems for enough people, like money, success, social capital, all those things follow behind it, by solving those big problems.
You are listening to the AI Brief for Education Leaders, presented by the Global CTE Podcast with your hosts, Sylvester and Rachel.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the AI Brief for Education Leaders. I'm Sylvester Chisom, your host, with my amazing co-host, Rachael Mann. And we're back again. 3 episodes in, Rachel. How you feeling?
3 months go by fast.
I know. Yeah, I'm so excited that we have been consistent with this through both of our busy schedules, making it work. But there's so much going on. The feedback has been great. People are excited about using this as their filter for new things that they should be aware of happening in AI and how it's connected to education and CTE. So hats off to you for all your bright ideas with AI.
It's, a lot happens in just 1 month, Sylvester. So I know we've talked about doing it every week, but like our listeners, that's a lot, just doing it every month has been a fantastic way of really thinking through, gosh, what all has happened in the past few weeks, the past month in AI.
Yeah, I know. We're like all month, we're like texting and DMing, like, did you see this? Oh my God, look at this, watch this, look at this article. But with that being said, what's new? What have you been working on? I know it's conference time. So like, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, it's been a crazy few weeks. I just got back from El Paso. I was at a conference where the focus was workforce and looking at how AI is impacting the workforce. So I was fortunate to keynote that event and share with them some of the new stuff that's happening. But also we're in the thick of things with planning the Best Practices and Innovations Conference, which is the 20th anniversary. This is a conference for CTE leaders and aspiring leaders. And Sylvester, you're going to be there. I'm so excited for our first time ever having our pre-conference workshop that's going to bring together 4 thought leaders from, actually 5. Our morning session is going to be Hans Meter. And then the afternoon, we have you, myself, we have Josh Davies and Kevin Fleming all coming together to talk about what's happening in the world of work and what it means for career technical education. And then the fireside chats the following day are going to be fantastic. A totally new concept with having thought leaders from across the nation and sitting down with our hosts. It'll be either for you and I'll be hosting it. We also have our board president, Bobby Deachin, who's going to be hosting some of those as well, but really diving into what's happening in AI for our conversation, which who knows what that's going to hold for us when September comes. We can't even plan for it until we get right up on it.
I know. It really is exciting. I say hats off to you and the entire team putting together an all-star lineup. And I have to thank you for an amazing destination. It's the part you left out, that it is in Cape Cod, like literally on the beach. So, I mean, that's just a great time to relax, recharge, and connect with other leaders. And you know something I like about this conference, what you've done well, is you create the space for those serendipitous conversations to happen, those random connections that sometimes really lead to the greatest insights and takeaways.
Oh, thank you. And, and I have to give credit to my team and to the board because they have a lot of input into that. And you sent me an article recently that talked about, and maybe it was a LinkedIn post, but it was talking about how important those in-between spaces are at conferences, those conversations that happen, whether it's at the exhibitor networking events or in between sessions, or we're going to have our s'mores and fire pits on the beach. Those conversations are things you take back with you. And that's really kind of the whole intention of the fireside chats, is to make it have that feel of that those in between moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to all of it.
Well, and I have to say, Sylvester, I don't know if you remember this, but we had been having conversations online for a while, but our first time meeting in person was in Cape Cod in 2022, if I remember correctly.
No, you're right. Yeah. Look at that. No, you're absolutely right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, it was in Cape Cod. That's the first time we actually had that face-to-face meeting. Yeah.
So that'll be really cool to actually we saw each other in St. Louis. Most of our interactions are, through screens, but those in-person meetings are so fantastic to be able to connect.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's going to be a great time in September, right? Is that right?
Yes, September 21st to the 23rd.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Definitely encourage all of our leaders, our CTE leaders, folks in education, to join us. And it's going to be a great time. Kevin's going to be there. I'm excited to see Kevin again too. So that's what you've been working on. Let me tell you something as we're talking AI brief that I found interesting. So I'm just returning from an amazing trip with our Show Me the World students. We had 30 folks, students and education leaders from Kansas City, head to Costa Rica. So we went to visit with them, coffee farms, science, hiking volcanoes, rainforest, all of that. And then I had a group of our St. Louis public school students in Colombia. So they did Bogota, went into the Coffee Farm Mountains in the Andes Mountains, which is awesome. And then Medellin and Cartagena. Now, here's the AI part that I thought was interesting, right? I didn't realize how focused my view of AI was to like USA, like things happening here. But visually, like going to restaurants and seeing signage and advertisements, there was so many signs that we saw that for restaurant menus that you could tell they were using AI to generate their menus. So like you would see like one restaurant that it looked very authentic, like handwritten or in chalk on the chalkboard, but then you would see someone else who's like, oh man, there's this extra excitement or these unique fonts that sometimes you can tell are made with AI. Even to the fact we were in Medellin in the airport, and they had a Colombia World Cup advertisement, huge advertisement, that you could see some AI elements in there with some of the font choices or the way they were being used. So I thought that was interesting. It like added to my perspective of like, wow, how other people are using AI across the world. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. But Sylvester, you recognize it because you're working with the AI tools. How many people still don't even know AI capabilities and that what they're seeing isn't real humans, that's AI generated? I think about a thread that I have with my family where my family shares different reels and different things. And sometimes they'll joke about like, wait, Rachel's going to tell us this is AI generated. And I'm like, because you're starting to recognize it too. It is AI generated. Yeah. And they're starting to pick up on it too. But otherwise, I think that it is important that people are able to recognize, and it's going to get harder and harder to be able to tell what is AI generated and what's not, because the technology keeps getting better and more realistic all the time. But just even knowing that seeing is no longer believing, that there's a lot of times that we have to really have that critical thinking piece to be able to say, hey, is this truly humans or, something created by AI?
Yeah. And yes, from that perspective, I was thinking that. And then the other perspective, the appreciation of it, or to help the business owners, to help the entrepreneurs. So we're in Spanish speaking countries where English may not be their first language, but they are advertising to American tourists. So how they're able to leverage AI to create a menu that would be attractive and have the clarity so that American tourists would be able to understand, what's being said, what's offered here. So I thought I was like, man, that's cool to see it like kind of AI in tourism play for people who are English as not the primary language, but you're trying to attract those tourists that speak English. I thought that was interesting.
Sylvester, and because you do so much with entrepreneurship, I can't help but point out how these tools can be transformative for either small business owners or someone who's pursuing a venture for the first time. And it's like, we know that in some ways AI is going to broaden the equity gap, but in some ways it can close it, because someone who they would have no ability to hire someone to help them create a business plan, create those marketing materials, to be able to build an app, because they don't have all the skills that it takes to create a business. But now for $20 a month, they have something that can help them create all those components and truly pursue something that they would have otherwise had to have worked for 20 years to save enough money to be able to start building that idea that's living in their head. And now they're able to pursue that.
Yeah, 100%. And even, okay, so this, I wasn't even thinking about this, but what you just said from an entrepreneurial perspective. So we had one of our drivers who ended up driving us for the whole day was using Google Translate for us to communicate. And I've used Google Translate in the past, but in this experience, I could tell the elevated experience with AI, like, and just how fast it was working, how efficient it was for us to communicate. Like, this gentleman didn't speak any English, but we were able to communicate on where we're going. Could he spend the day with us? Wait 30 minutes here while we do this or that. So I found those things to be very, very interesting. As use cases, as we're seeing AI being, helping the entrepreneur, or even like the AI and tourism angle that I had not even thought about.
Okay, now I need to plan an international trip so I can experience this. First of all, for those students, how life-changing for them to get, they will never forget this. They're not going to be the same person as a result of those experiences. So kudos to you for providing them that opportunity. And I'm sure you were also pointing out along the way how AI is changing how we do those things. And I just saw an ad from ChatGPT about how ChatGPT can now turn your route and departure time into your plans for driving. And that's pretty cool. Like, I can get into, like with my Tesla, it's able to like plan out my entire route. I can just ask Grok, which I do want to point out that Grok is a tool that I've stayed away from, but I've actually been pretty impressed since it's included in in my car, my experience. But I can be like, hey, I need to add a stop to pick up my dog at Greenland Pet Resort. And it just completely reroutes it so that I can still have my eyes on the road versus trying to, look up something on the side. In some ways it can make us safer when it's able to have all this, even the self-driving mode, it's fully supervised. But there have been moments where it changes its route because it's able to see the bigger picture and traffic, which we know that Waze can change your route as well. But also, something that I may not have seen in the corner of my eye because it uses AI and the combination of all the sensors and LiDAR to be able to detect something that could potentially go wrong. So yeah, lots of changes in how we travel and
100%. And those are real opportunities as we think about how our CTE department should be thinking about career opportunities, connected when you're talking about LiDAR or self-driving cars. All of those things are real issues, or things for real issues and opportunities for us to be thinking about. So, all right, great segue as you talk about your Tesla. Let's talk about the gentleman who creates so much controversy, whether you love him or however you feel about him. Elon Musk becomes the first trillionaire because SpaceX has gone public. That was June 12th. I think it's totally relevant as SpaceX increasingly becomes more of an AI focused company, trying to do everything from putting data centers in space to, to manage all the demand that is connected to AI. Any thoughts on that? Like, just first, let's just start there before we move.
I was listening to someone just this morning, listening to a podcast while I was getting ready, and they were talking about this merger and talking about Elon becoming the first trillionaire and how, what's next? Will it be someone owning their own planet? Will it be, like just how becoming an interplanetary species is something that is not as far off as it formerly was because of all of this exponential change that we're seeing. But also they were talking about how Elon wasn't ever focused on becoming a trillionaire. And again, regardless, like you said, love or hate, I have both moments. There are times where I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, why would you say that? But then there are times where it's just like, gosh, he's doing some really brilliant things. But he has never been about becoming a trillionaire. He's been about solving big problems. And I've thought about how that reminded me of a company that NCLA partners with, ICV, and hearing one of their top leaders, Mark Johnson, talking about how if you take care of the people, the money takes care of itself. Or even in tennis, like hearing my coach last night saying, if you're focusing on winning, you're not going to win. You've got to focus on playing the game, on your execution, on doing things well. And that made me think about like this whole chain of thought of how like within CTE, as leaders in CTE, like how do we make sure that we don't get caught up in the noise? How do we make sure we're focusing on the right things? That it's not about, about seat time and the finances and just doing the right things. Just thinking about things differently. There's a lot of thoughts that go into that.
I like how you frame that, and what does winning look like? What does it look like when CTE leaders are focused on solving bigger problems, right? And being intentional about the approach. Something in alignment with what you just said that I've heard and try to really be intentional about. The great ones, they always do the fundamentals right. Right. So it's like they don't not do the fundamentals. So it's like you have to do those things. And what does that look like in CTE for us to focus on the fundamentals, thinking about bigger problems, to try to solve for our students, and connecting that to industry and all of those things. So I love how you frame that. I really do. And that is something to be inspired by from the Elon Musk story with the different companies from PayPal to Tesla to SpaceX here today.
Well, and Sylvester, the fundamentals piece, when it comes to AI, if students don't understand the fundamentals, if we get too caught up in AI and they don't understand the domain specific knowledge, that's a problem too. Like when if AI is doing the work for students and they haven't learned that, they're not going to have the judgment that they need. They're not going to have the ability to recognize when an output isn't a good output. So I really think that fundamentals piece, it plays right into what we want with AI in education as well. Absolutely.
Very well said. One major CTE connection for the SpaceX IPO. Okay. Former SpaceX welder Juan Hernandez becomes a millionaire after historic IPO. Okay. Let me say it again. Former SpaceX welder, keyword for CTE, welder becomes a millionaire after the historic IPO. I think it's a unique conversation that talks about a CTE pathway connected to ownership, equity stake in a company, and how one of our CTE trades could lead to an opportunity for this. He currently actually works for Blue Origin, another space company, Jeff Bezos. But what are your, let me add this to it. Okay, hold on. Let me add this. So you have Juan Hernandez, who's a welder who becomes a millionaire because he had an equity stake in shares in SpaceX when it went public. But also it's estimated that more than 4,000 SpaceX employees, which include not just high-level executives, but employees in roles from cafeteria workers to contract workers, have seen a large increase in their wealth. Thoughts?
First of all, look at the ecosystem of CTE related jobs connected to SpaceX. When you are that welding instructor and you are talking to the students about the opportunities, are you sharing with them that, hey, you might work for Blue Origin or SpaceX and that these are some opportunities that may come as a result? Or that culinary teacher that, here are some other opportunities where you might work somewhere that you never even thought would be a possibility otherwise. But there's just so many careers connected to each of these organizations. How do we make that more visible to a student? That it's not that they can think about like, hey, I want to work for NASA. That doesn't mean being an astronaut. That could mean so many different things, which all contribute to that mission and that interest.
100% said. And I think I want to personally highlight more stories like that, through the podcast, through different avenues of engagement. But I think it's important for the narrative shift of CTE that these are honorable careers, that these are places where they should be celebrated at the highest level, next to doctor and lawyer, next to 4-year college degree related opportunities. I think this is part of the narrative shift to share. Like, if this is the work that a person has been called to do, that they see themselves in it, there are big opportunities in it. And it's also speaks to the connection of wealth and CTE as you think about it being tied to ownership of assets, right? And ideally assets that have the opportunity to appreciate in value. So how this gentleman that was a welder worked at a company that saw the value in sharing equity with its employees outside of just the executive level.
Sylvester, that too, AI is having a big impact on finances, how we look at finances. I got a notification the other day that I can now connect all of my accounts to as a beta user for ChatGPT as part of the pro account, that I can connect using, I believe that they're using Plaid as the platform to give it that extra layer of security and have it evaluate all of my finances. Think about even being able to, as someone who may not know a lot about investments or stocks, and now they can use an AI tool, someone who may not be able to even afford a financial plan or otherwise, but start learning about the S&P or different things that they may not have known before, that, oh, this is how I could have thought about my finances differently. I was looking at Dave Ramsey's different formulas for having your 6-month reserve and, just looking at my own financial planning, and use ChatGPT I did not do the Plaid piece of connecting my account yet. It does, I'll get there. But, there's just been some stories where I'm like, I'm not there yet. But being able to give it some information and making sure that my settings are correct so that I have my data turned off so it's not training the public model for everyone when I start talking about my finances. But it gave me some really good thoughts and information, even criticizing some of the things that I saw as things that should be part of my 6-month formula of that emergency fund, like saying that the amount of money that I spend on dog food would look different for an emergency fund, that no, you're not getting that Kiwi air dried dog food if you're in 6 months emergency mode. And I'm like, oh, well, it's my dog's health. And it's like, no, you're eating peanut butter and jelly. No, I'm kidding. I didn't say that part, but it really did criticize some of the things that made me think differently about what emergency really looks like. Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Speaking of,
I need to go full circle because I totally went off on a little rabbit trail there. Keep going. No, so but connecting it back to students. So even looking at, I believe it's California that's now requiring financial training. But so thinking about how, gosh, we've got to make that an important part of when we look at a student to making sure they're prepared for their future. This could be an example. This, thinking about this welder who, being part of a company, like, how do you think about your future and the decisions you make as to where you're going to work and things other than that, maybe an hourly or salary, a wage that need to be factored in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think it's also even a conversation for industry to think about how to better engage your employees by having, stock offerings or, that sort of thing for people to be invested in the success of the company as well at all levels, to achieve that desired mission and outcome. So, yeah, great conversations there. Rachel, I'm always curious every month because I know you're always tinkering and playing with different things. Any new things that you're using or trying with AI tools? Any features or things to share?
Yeah, so I am absolutely loving Claude. I've been using Claude a ton lately. I was very disappointed when Fable 5 got blocked by the government, and I was in the middle of building this multi-stack kind of complex app that I'd started working on back in December using Replit, but then got a little stuck. So I'm like, I'm using Fable 5 now to create this, and was just blown away by what I was doing. And it was Friday evening of having just worked on it for a few days and having it create my code and create all these levels. And suddenly it's like Fable 5 is no longer working. I'm like, what do you mean? Is my Wi-Fi down? What's happening? And then saw where it was being blocked due to risks, to cybersecurity risks. And, those are important things. Like, I know that this one gets a little bit more complicated because of some of the issues that they'd had with the government prior. But so there's still some cool things that I'm doing. So Claude has added into where you can create routines. So now every day at 11 a.m., I could have chose a different time, but I went with their recommendation. At 11 a.m., it evaluates. I have it connected to my email to where it can, the permissions are set so that it can draft the responses, which I know we were doing that previously using Codex last time we talked, but it actually goes through and it creates categories for my low priority emails, the drafts of emails that need to be responded to, and gives me a summary every single day. Now, I can draft my own responses to emails, but having something that has now read all my emails so it knows my voice. And at first I thought, why isn't it writing in my voice? Like, when it has access to all of this. And I started I don't sound that stuffy. And I started going through some of my emails. I'm like, oh, I do sound that stuffy. All right. You got to work on that. Kind of learn something about yourself. But yeah, that's been interesting. And then something else, which I think our audience may want to give a try. But I asked Claude, and I also asked ChatGPT because I do different things in different platforms. But I asked, how am I underutilizing AI in my workflows? Based on everything that you know about me, the information that you have, how am I underutilizing this tool? And wow, I think that I'm using it in some really fantastic ways. It gave me some fantastic responses on how I can get more out of the tools by being more mindful about creating even more agents and using the agentic workflows more, and just looking at some of the business pieces and tasks that I'm doing differently. So I highly recommend that to anyone listening in. Be sure to ask the tool, how am I underutilizing this platform?
Wow. Okay. So key takeaway right here, I think we should pull that thread through. Try this prompt this week as soon as you finish watching this episode. Ask the AI tools, if it's Chat or Claude, how am I underutilizing this particular tool to help with my daily workflow? Yes. Based on what you understand about my, what you know about my workflows, how am I underutilizing this platform? Yeah, I think I can't wait to do it myself because I'm like, I know there will be some powerful insights on at least one or two big takeaways to elevate the productivity or efficiency of how we're using AI tools in our daily work. So that's a great one, Rachel. Thank you for sharing that. I want one last topic that I think is important. There's a lot there's a lot of shifts happening in these AI companies with talent. Folks going from one company, from Anthropic to Google to OpenAI to, leaving and starting their own thing. There's a huge one. Noam Shazir leaves Google for OpenAI. So people are like, who's this guy? Okay, so he is one of the authors of Attention is All You Need, which is one of the most important papers written in AI, which underpins a lot of the large language models. He was working on Gemini. He was the head of Gemini. So for him to move to OpenAI is very interesting. Speaking of the fact that he was an early Google employee, and he just came back to Google when they acquired his company, Character AI, for $2.7 billion. So 2 years ago, he comes back to Google as they acquire his company to be the head of Gemini for $2.7 billion. And then 2 years later, now he's off to help run things at OpenAI as they think about transformers and scaling limits that are happening with AI. So for me, Rachel, I'm thinking there's something very interesting about still the human agency behind the tech. I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
It's interesting to see at that level, the job hopping, because people talk about job hopping and how it's impacting their, employee retention. Man, that's the next level of job hopping right there, and taking your intellectual property with you. I'm sure there's some things that they've signed their NDAs for that they're not able to disclose, which that would be tough going to a new organization and having to honor some of that. But it's wild, but it reflects how quickly things are changing across the board in AI, and that the ability to have resilience and to be able to shift, because that's going to be some shifts for the companies that they're leaving and the companies that they're coming into. But gosh, resiliency is huge. And as we think about business and industry partners, how do you really hold on to your key talent these days? What is it? What was that thing that made him willing to shift? Because get that much money. I don't think it's about money anymore.
Yeah, it's really not even like you started the conversation talking about Elon. Like it's not about money. It's like when you solve big problems for enough people, like money, success, social capital, all those things follow behind it, by solving those big problems. So I think it is something to say about talent is going to follow vision. Right? Talent's going to follow vision and leadership. And great people want to work on hard problems. They want to work on big problems, and that's usually the lead there. So thinking about that as a motivating factor, in organizations and companies with keeping talent. It's like, what problems are we really trying to solve that are attractive to people?
Well, and I'll say in CTE, how do we make sure we're giving students big problems that we're not sugarcoating or protecting them, even when it comes to AI, having them be a part of those conversations about here are some potential big problems that we could run into as a society as a result of artificial intelligence. Yeah. How do we make sure that those students are part of the answer in every step of the road, and letting them be the ones to really look at problems that don't have answers right now?
Yeah, I love that you say that. Okay, so we've talked about a lot here. SpaceX IPO, its connection to CTE, welders and culinary folks becoming very wealthy individuals because of their connection to it. We talked about the fun things you're doing with Claude. I'm curious. Okay, before we move to next month, what's one AI trend or development you'll be watching over the next month?
Ooh, that's a big question. I think prompt injections, because right now, as I'm allowing Claude to have access to my emails, if someone were to, and now that I've said that publicly, I might have to go back and remove that connection or really watch my email carefully. But if someone sends an email that has some malicious code, or they've just put in there somehow to ignore all of other instructions. I was just reading today on Claude, like their thoughts on what prompt injection could look like with some of the tools that we're using, and making sure that even when I think about where do I keep my passwords? Because right now I'm like, oh, so someone can put in an email, to transfer this amount of money from Rachel's account to this account, and I'm not able to see it because of the way that they've hidden it in the email with prompt injection. If I'm giving it access to my laptop and to my files, I got to make sure I know where I'm keeping my bank account information, my passwords, and what information I've given access to. Being very, very mindful of that and making sure that people understand that you don't want to just blindly say, oh, this is great, I can have AI do this for me. You really have to understand some of the risks and make sure that you're doing the right thing. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that and the safeguards that these companies continue to put in place to protect its users.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me personally, my curiosity lives with going from AI assistants to AI agents. So being more curious about what workflows I can pass off to agents, support in decision making, things that can help give me time back. So I'm going to continue to explore more with personally with like, what are some of the things that I'm doing that maybe an agent could support with doing. I don't know if I'm fully at the place where I see some people like they have an agent that does every single thing for every department, every workflow. But I think it's important to explore that, because I'm seeing that's where I feel like it's going in relation to work and workflows. So that would be my one challenge to our audience is like, what's something you can try to explore with an AI agent this month, and see what you learn about the work, about the process, and if it's something that could be passed off, for sure. And
I want to play off of that, because I think it's so important to know what we want to allow AI to do and what we reserve for ourselves. This has to remain human. This is important for me to do as a human, whether it's creating those personal responses to certain individuals, whatever it might be. I heard someone providing some advice to someone last night about writing a book and saying, oh, you just give all that information to AI and it'll write the book for you. As an author, that hurt my heart a little bit. I'm like, so much more to writing a book. You don't just, first of all, do humans want to buy a book that was written by AI? Will it have that same meaning? And it could be that what we give meaning to changes as AI becomes a part of our daily workflows. But I think that really holding on to the things that we want to keep specifically human is key too.
100%. And quick plug for the next Global CTE podcast, I have Anshaw Sonic on, who's the head of Intel's education program. And one of the things he said and that's fully in alignment with that, he's like, see it this way: human first, AI second, human at the end. So you put the AI in the middle in terms of the ideas start with you, with the human agency, move into the AI, and then ending back with the human for that review process to finalize it. So something.
I love that.
All right, Rachel. I don't know. Any last thoughts on?
Man, I have so many thoughts on AI, but I know that we're at our time. I don't want to keep you when you have other meetings around the corner. But gosh, it's always such a good conversation. I feel like we could go on for hours.
I know. I do see that. I'm going to make one prediction. I see this AI brief for education leaders moving into a weekly format at some point. I don't know when, but I just feel like the more we're texting and DMing, like, did you see this? Did you see this? It probably just needs to turn on like, hey, let's hop on Zoom later tonight when you're free and let's talk about it.
Because it's hard to get, when we have a whole month of things that we've been talking about, it's hard to pull that back into a short conversation, because it's just, It's so exciting
you
times.
just glazed over the Fable 5 being shut down by the government. Like we didn't even like that's a whole thing.
That's a whole episode on its own.
Yeah, that we didn't even get it. So thank you, Rachael, again for your time. Thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and a colleague. Keep your eyes posted for the NCLA conference. It's going to be a great time. We love to see you all in person as we present this format live in person at the conference in Cape Cod on the beach, having a great time. And sharing our thoughts. So until the next episode. Yes, s'mores in hand. I love it. I'm excited. I'm coming for the s'mores. All right. Until the next episode, remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the AI Brief for Education Leaders. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.